All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Leanne Wynn, and I'm here for Sharks for Kids, and I hope everyone's having a fantastic day thus far. Today, we have the pleasure of chatting with Josh Moyer, whose artwork you might have seen on some of our Sharks for Kids coloring pages. Josh has been interested in sharks since the age of 4, so that might be similar to some of you out there. This interest led to studying biology at Millersville University, which then led to working at Shoals Marine Laboratory and finally earning a master's degree in ecology and evolutionary biology, studying the jaws and teeth of the great white shark and their relatives at Cornell University. Currently, Josh is earning a doctorate at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, where Josh is studying the feeding behaviors and anatomy of various shark species. So thank you again, Josh, for joining myself and all of our viewers out there for our last Google Hangout of the year. So without further ado, I will hand it off to Josh.
Okay, thank you very much, Leanne. Yeah, it's always great to connect with more people who share my passion for these wonderful toothy fishes. So like Leanne said, I've been interested in sharks since, well, pretty much as long as I can remember, since I was 4 years old. And it started not by going out to some faraway place, but just by going to the library. The library is a great place for anybody who wants to learn more about anything, really. And we're so lucky because nowadays we have libraries at our fingertips. You know, we can go on the internet and learn all sorts of cool things about sharks and all manner of other stuff. So I highly encourage people, ask questions, and we'll have time at the end where you can ask me questions, and I look forward to hearing and answering your questions. So one of the things that I did when Leanne and Sharks for Kids said, hey, would you like to talk to some people about sharks? I said, yeah, absolutely. And I put together a little slideshow because everything's better with pictures, right? You know, people like pictures. So I'm going to show you some pictures of the things that I study, the shark teeth that I study. And let's see, here we go. And all right. So first of all, you can see down at the bottom of the slide, there are some pictures of shark teeth, and we're going to talk about those as we go along. But I wanted to tell you a little bit more about myself. Yeah, there I am up in the top right. That's me when I was, well, I guess about 5 or 6 years old, and that's my dad. He took me to the aquarium one day. He's taken me to many aquariums. And I always would sit there and just find the shark tank and just stare at the sharks because they're so beautiful, so mesmerizing. And as Leanne said, then I went to college and I got a degree so I can study sharks. And then I went to more school, but that's all right because it was really fun, right? Going and being a graduate student, you can do all sorts of fun research, and that was what led me to see some amazing shark specimens, both tagging sharks, you know, going out and studying live sharks. And that's what I'm doing down in the bottom left-hand corner in that picture. I had just tagged a black-tip shark, and I'm sending it back to swim with its friends. And sometimes I would go off places and see collections of really cool jaws and teeth and things like that. All right. So I just got a message saying that you guys can't see the next slide with all the pictures on it. So let me see if I can work that out a little better. All right, if we do this and go to screen sharing, see if we can do this a little better. All right. Okay.
Awesome.
There you go. Now you got the pictures?
Yeah. Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So, well, that's good because I would hate for you guys to miss the chance to see the cute little Josh Moyer in the picture there holding up his shark puppet. And check out the jaws that I'm holding in the picture below that. Those are the jaws of a 19.5-foot long great white shark. So these things got really big. They get really big. All right. So moving on, I have a little video I want to show you. And as you're watching this video, it's really short, but I just want you to start thinking of your own questions about sharks and why you might want to study sharks. So let's see. Here we go. All right. So this is a little marbled cat shark, cute little guy. And here's a nurse shark swimming along through the Bahamas. I love nurse sharks. They're really pretty and graceful. Yeah, and that fish that came up and darted right at the camera, that's called a remora. Sometimes you see them hanging on to the sides of sharks or sea turtles because they'll go along for the ride and feed on scraps of fish that the shark eats. And here are some sand tiger sharks. And one of the reasons I'm showing you this video is because you really have to see these sharks to get your imagination going, because imagination is very important. It helps you come up with questions that you can ask when you're studying sharks or any number of other things. Oh, there's a baby lemon shark swimming along. I love those things. They're so cute. They would go into the shallows and chase little fish. Oh, and here are some bull sharks. You've probably seen bull sharks on the Discovery Channel or National Geographic. People like talking about bull sharks. All right. So one of the things that I want you to notice is that there are lots of different kinds of sharks. All right. So keep that in mind as we go through the talk today. Remember, lots of different kinds of sharks. In fact, there are over 400 species of sharks. And if you include the shark relatives, so things like stingrays, and sometimes you'll hear people talk about skates. Those are like little flattened sharks. There are over 1,200 species of, we call them chondrichthyans. That's the fancy word for sharks and their relatives. And we'll talk about why we have that fancy word in just a little bit. All right, so why would you want to study sharks? Why do I want to study sharks? Well, I think that they're beautiful and really cool animals to look at, but you can actually learn a lot of specific things by studying sharks. So for example, you might look at fossil sharks, and you can begin to ask questions like, how have sharks changed over time? Sharks have been around for over 400 million years. I don't mean that one shark has been around for 400 million years. I mean, if you hopped in a time machine and went back 400 million years, you would see some really bizarre, interesting looking fishes swimming around in the ocean, and some of them were sharks. So you can begin to ask yourself, well, how have sharks changed over time, over those millions and millions of years? And you can also look at modern sharks. You can look at the ocean today and say, well, how healthy are the oceans? Remember, healthy oceans have sharks swimming around in them. I'm sure many of you have heard about the food chain, or sometimes you hear it referred to as food webs, where you say, okay, well, you have little things, and then medium-sized things eat the little things, and then bigger things eat the medium-sized things, and it's all connected. So a healthy ocean has sharks. It has things that we call apex predators. Now that's a fancy term. Apex predators. What does that mean? That means that you're essentially at the top of the food chain. You're eating a lot of stuff. And that's very important, because if you don't have what's on the top of the food chain, it's really not a great food chain, is it? You got to have something at the top. All right, so sharks are great indicators of a healthy ocean. And an ocean without sharks is not a healthy ocean. Right. And another thing that you can begin to think about, questions that you can start to ask when you study sharks, is how do the sharks interact with their environment? Living organisms interact with their environment all the time. Plants do it, we do it, our dogs and cats interact with the environment, goldfish interact with the environment. If you're a living organism, you are interacting with your environment, and sharks are no different. Sharks interact with their environment all the time. And this is a branch of biology that we like to call ecology. Right? So you can look at the ecology of sharks. how they interact with their environment. And there are lots of different ways that you can interact with your environment. You can breathe the air, you can walk around in it. Some animals like to make burrows, and they physically change the environment by doing things inside the environment, like digging or scraping or walking over the same path or swimming through the same patch of ocean, right? So that's one way to interact with the environment. But another way that you can interact with your environment is you can eat parts of your environment. You can eat other animals in your environment. So eating, we call that trophic ecology. That's a fancy word for saying, okay, where are you in that food web? Where are you in the food chain? And what are you eating? And sometimes you have to ask, what's eating you? Right? So you can look at the trophic ecology of sharks. You can look at how they're interacting with the food species around them. And you can also say, well, how are the sharks actually eating? Right? I mean, that sounds like a silly question, but it's a good one. Think about it. When you go to lunch, I know some of you are having lunch right now. I think I heard somebody saying you're doing a lunch and learn. So if you are eating lunch right now, or you're going to eat lunch later on in the day, or you've already eaten lunch, think about this. When you go up to put a piece of food in your mouth, there are a lot of things going on. You have to lower your jaw, open your mouth, right? And then you put the food in, and chances are your tongue is moving around, and you can feel the food, and you taste the food, and then you have to chew the food, and then you have to swallow the food, right? So it sounds simple, but there's a lot to study when you're talking about something eating something else. And that's what I study with sharks. I study how sharks eat. And I look at their teeth, and I look at their jaws, and it's really pretty cool. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. All right, so speaking of teeth and jaws, I have some pictures there. I love pictures because these shark teeth are so interesting. They're really unique. They're unlike anything else that I can think of. And they're cool because just by looking at the teeth, just by looking at the jaws, I can make educated guesses, which in science we call those hypotheses. I can hypothesize what the shark eats, how big it is, what other sharks it's related to, how it eats. You know, is this a shark that likes to lay on the bottom and just slurp things that swim along on top, above it? Or maybe it's like a great white shark that sees something and it just goes rushing up to the surface and bam, nails it, you know? Right? So there's a lot to be learned about shark eating and shark behavior and their diets, right? Some sharks we know eat seals and sea lions. That's like the white shark eats seals and sea lions. Other sharks will eat sea turtles, like the tiger shark will eat sea turtles. And you remember the sand tiger shark that was in the video that I showed you? Well, that likes to eat fish and other smaller sharks, right? So there's a wide variety. And the nurse sharks are really cool because they like to go along the bottom and they'll find little invertebrates. So things without spines, without a vertebral column, right? Things without a backbone, and like clams or crabs or lobsters, things like that. And the nurse sharks will go up and they have teeth that they can use to like crunch the shells of these things. And so they'll just sort of slurp, say a crab, they'll crunch it and then they'll, you know, sort of slurp the insides of the crab out. And so lots of variety. You know, different sharks eat different things. And so you look down at the bottom of this slide that I have here, you can see I'm holding, that's my hand, and I'm holding a tooth from a really big shark that went extinct. So that means that it's not around anymore, but it went extinct about 2.5 million years ago. And that shark is commonly called Megalodon. Okay, so there you go. You learned a new name for an extinct species of shark, Megalodon. And a lot of people think Megalodon was just like a really big great white shark. So I don't know how many of you rode a school bus to get to school today or have ever been on a school bus, but Megalodon was as big as a school bus. So imagine seeing a big shark with teeth that big swimming around. I think we can all be glad that it went extinct 2.5 million years ago. But we know something about Megalodon. We can make guesses about what it ate and what sharks it's related to by looking at its teeth, right? The other stuff that you see on that slide, you have pictures of a shark jaw. That jaw belongs to a species called the snaggletooth shark. And as you might imagine, it gets its name because its teeth are all snaggled and jagged. And I think it's just a really bizarre looking set of jaws. So remember how I said, oh, Megalodon went extinct went extinct about 2.5 million years ago. And before that, I said sharks have been around for over 400 million years. Well, how do we know that? How do we know that sharks have been around for 400 million years? One of the ways we know that is we look at fossil teeth, right? Fossil shark teeth are really, really common. In fact, they're one of the most commonly collected fossils in the world. And we can learn an awful lot about sharks from the teeth. We can look at the shape, we can look at the size, right? So I have a question for you. Why are fossil shark teeth so common? Why do people find so many of them? In fact, if you're looking for fossil sharks, chances are you're going to find their teeth first. And the reason why fossil shark teeth are so common. Oh, there's a fossil shark tooth. That's another Megalodon tooth. So this is a big tooth. It's about the size of my face, right? So the reason fossil shark teeth are so common can be answered by looking at a shark jaw. So this is a picture of a shark jaw that belongs to a shark called the porbeagle shark. It's like a cousin of the great white. It's distantly related, right? And if we zoom in, look at a shark jaw and zoom in, you can see there are rows and rows and rows of teeth. Sharks never run out of teeth. As human beings, we get two sets of teeth. We have our baby teeth and we have our adult teeth. And we only get those two sets. That's why it's important to take care of the teeth we get. But sharks don't have that problem. If a shark loses a tooth, don't worry, another one moves right up to take its place. So you can see these rows and rows of teeth with one functional tooth, that's the teeth that it's going to use to bite into things. And then behind those functional teeth, you have rows of replacement teeth ready to go. So over the course of a shark's lifetime, it might shed thousands and thousands of teeth. In fact, that's the thought that this great white shark is having. It says, we can go through thousands of teeth in a lifetime. That's how great white sharks sound. Trust me, I'm a scientist. So the great white shark is saying, we can go through thousands of teeth in a lifetime. And over on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see there's actually a shark skeleton. That's how a shark skeleton looks. And that belongs to a species of shark called a seven-gill shark. And that seven-gill shark skeleton is thinking, hey, there's something special about shark skeletons. Shark skeletons are made of cartilage. Now that's weird. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of cartilage before, but we have things that are made of cartilage. If you want, you can reach up and grab the tip of your nose like this, and you can wiggle it back and forth. Right? The reason you can do that is because the tip of your nose is made of cartilage. Right? So cartilage is wonderful because it's flexible and it's lightweight. And so shark skeletons are made of cartilage. And the same is true for stingray skeletons and skate skeletons. And there's one more group of fishes that people always forget about called ratfish. They're also related to sharks. And they all get lumped together in that group chondrichthyes. Remember that name that I said at the beginning of the talk? Chondrichthyes means cartilage fish, right? So chondrichthyes, which include sharks, have skeletons made of cartilage. But their teeth are not made of cartilage. The teeth are sturdy, mineralized, heavy structures. And that's really important because if you want to study extinct species of sharks, you only have a fossil record that is made mostly of teeth. Why? Because shark skeletons, being made of cartilage, don't make good fossils. If you look at a picture of a regular fish, right? So think of a fish that you're familiar with, a fish that we would call a normal fish, like a goldfish or a tuna or something like that. They have bony skeletons, just like we do. We have skeletons made of bone, and many, many fishes do as well. And here's a picture of a fossil of a fish with a bony skeleton, and you can look at it and you can see individual bones, and you say, okay, great, wonderful, I know what that fish looked like. I have a pretty good idea what that fish looked like, how big it was, and then I can use that information to guess what fish it's related to. But sharks aren't like that, right? It's very, very, very rare to find a complete shark skeleton in the fossils. Right? But you can find lots of shark teeth. Why? Because each shark is shedding teeth over the course of its lifetime. All right, so you can take those teeth, you can take the fossil teeth, and you can then say, okay, well, I want to compare it to the teeth of modern sharks, sharks that are swimming around in the oceans now. And so you take the modern teeth, and you take the fossil teeth and you compare them and contrast them, and you say, how similar are these? So here are some pictures of fossil teeth and also a modern tooth. The modern tooth is on the left-hand side of the screen, and it's the white one. And that actually comes from a great white shark. And right next to that, you can see that there's a black tooth that looks very, very, very similar to the great white shark tooth. Well, guess what? Both of those teeth come from great white sharks. The dark-colored tooth, right? But the white great white shark tooth, the one that's not fossilized, comes from a great white shark that we caught about 5 years ago. Right? So a modern great white shark. And so what scientists can do is they can look at those two teeth and they say, I think these are from the same species. And if they're from the same species, we can make a pretty good guess about what this extinct great white shark ate and about how big it was, right? So you can see that I've underlined the phrase educated guesses, and I think we just lost the screen share again, which is a little frustrating. So here I'm going to go through and go back to screen share. Let's see here. Technical difficulties. Isn't it wonderful? All right. So it says screen sharing failed to start. Well, no kidding. We got that. No session to start screencast with. That's odd.
We're still here, and we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Well, how about
It all of a sudden it just kind of went away, but we were seeing everything, all of the teeth and listening, and then we just lost the share.
That's strange. All right. Well, I'll continue to try, but I'll keep going and narrate a little bit.
Great information. Thank you. And thank you everybody for, again, technical difficulties, but yeah, great photos to talk about so far.
Yeah. So one of the things that you might notice with those fossil shark teeth is there were some that looked really weird, like they didn't look like the other shark teeth. And that's always exciting if you're a scientist and you're looking through the dirt and you find a tooth that you say, what the heck is this? This does not look like anything I'm familiar with, because there's a lot of variation. There are different kinds of shark teeth. So if you find one that doesn't match with a modern shark tooth, you can say, maybe this is an extinct species of shark. So that's really exciting. There's a lot of diversity, lots of differences. And I'm going to try again to show you some pictures, because I think they're really cool, really nice to look at. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, still says screen sharing failed to start. Okay, so what if I do this? Turn it back on. Nope, still nothing. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap up then, and I'll open the floor to questions. Does that sound good, Leanne? Whoops, I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Yes.
There you go.
And we're seeing your icon and not your camera.
Well, that's just frustrating all different ways, isn't it? Everything was going all right for a second. Let's see. Do you think it would help if I logged off and logged back on?
No, because then it would change it. But I mean, again, like you said, great information so far. I think maybe, yeah, just a little wrap up, and then we can start to take some questions from students.
Absolutely. Well, tell you what, how about I'll send some pictures along later that your students can look at and see all different sorts of shark teeth, and I'll even put together some activities that they can use.
Oh, we thank you so much. And I'm sure all our viewers and everything, thank you so much. So definitely, again, teachers and all viewers, we'll make sure that we post them on our social media so you see them. Yeah,
sounds good. All right. So I'm sorry things aren't working out technically, but I just want to wrap up by saying this. Whenever you're making comparisons, whenever you want to learn something about the world around you, you should always find new ways to look at it. That's one of the things that I do. That's one of the things that keeps me really busy. I'm always sticking shark teeth under microscopes. I'm sticking them in front of cameras. I'm using different kinds of cameras to take pictures of these things. I'm using different ways to measure them because there's always a different way to look at things. So no matter what you're interested in, whether it's shark teeth or trees or flowers or dogs or cats, whatever, it doesn't matter. Find different ways to look at them and never, ever, ever stop asking questions. Questions are great ways to learn. So if you guys have any questions, I would be happy to answer them as best I can.
Awesome. All right, so how about we start over with Rosedale, our 5th graders from Rosedale. If you want to go ahead and come up and to the camera, and you can take yourself off mute, and we can take a few questions. You have to unmute. Sorry, because we can't hear you.
Okay, go ahead, Vaughn.
What are your opinions on people cutting off shark fins and throwing them back in the water?
So I think we just lost Josh.
We lost him.
Yes. And hopefully he will come right back.
Oh, here he goes. There he is.
Awesome. Oh, we see you. So our first question was, how do you feel about people cutting off the fins, correct? What's your name?
Vaughn.
All right. So the question, go ahead and repeat your question so Josh can hear you nice and.
What are your opinions on people cutting off the shark's fins and throwing them back in the water?
Oh, that's a great question. My opinion is that I think it's very wasteful. I don't think it's very responsible. And I think that it should be avoided. I think it's a problem because it's cruel, it's mean to the animal, right? It's wasteful because you're throwing the rest of the animal back. And it's actually, I think it's kind of a shame right? So that's a problem. And I think whenever you're out somewhere, like if you're at a restaurant, if you or your parents or your friends are out somewhere and somebody ever says, oh, I want to try shark fin soup, I think that's time for you to say, no, we should reconsider that, because the act of getting those shark fins is really, really problematic, and it's very wasteful, and it hurts the animal. And so that was a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. Thank you. Uh-oh, Leanne, I think now you're on mute.
I keep doing it so that way I don't talk over you. Sorry. But thank you. How about we go ahead over to Outlook Elementary School? Do we have somebody that wants to come up and ask a question?
Awesome. Do sharks really attack people?
Oh, do sharks really attack people? Well, the short answer is sometimes they will go up and take a bite out of people. And that's unfortunate, but you got to ask yourself why. Trying to understand why a shark might bite a human being is an active area of research, right? Shark scientists spend a lot of time wondering that. And I have a question for you. If you did not have hands or arms or legs or feet, but you wanted to explore the world, right? If you wanted to learn about the world, how might you do that? Well, one way to do that is to go up and say, is this edible? What does it taste like? So if you were curious about something and you didn't have any other way to learn about it, you might go up and take a little exploratory bite. Right? Now, that might not be such a big deal if you were another shark, but human skin is very, very thin compared to shark teeth. Right? So even if a shark goes up and takes what it thinks is just a nibble, that can be a big problem for a human being. So I don't know if it would be fair to say the shark attacked the human, but it might bite it to learn about it. Or sometimes you have to remember sharks don't speak English like we do, right? So a shark, if it's upset, is not able to turn around and say, excuse me, please get away from me. Right? It can't do that. That would be pretty silly if it could, right? So it might go up and say, hey, move, you're in my space, and it would take a little bite at you that way. So yes, sharks do sometimes bite humans, but I don't think it's fair to say that they're swimming around looking for an opportunity to attack humans, right? But that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. Thank you.
Great question and great answer. Thank you for that view. So how about St. Mark's School?
Okay. I'm Lucas. Oh.
Hello, how are you?
I'm Lucas, and where did you find the Megalodon shark tooth?
Oh, Megalodon shark teeth are found all over the world. That's one of the cool things about having a group of animals that have been around for as long as they have. Shark teeth are found all over the world. That Megalodon tooth that you saw in the picture, me looking silly, going like, oh, look how big the tooth is, right? That was actually found in Georgia. Yep.
Cool.
Good question. Yeah.
Great question. All right, so let's head back over to Rosedale.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Gregory, and I'm just asking, why do you like sharks so much, and why do you research about them?
That's a great question, Gregory. Why do I like sharks so much? Well, I think there are lots of different reasons to like sharks. One of my favorite is because they capture my imagination. Right? When I study sharks, I don't just sit there and say, oh gosh, I need to learn what the fins are called, and now I need to learn where this one's found and how big that one gets. I use my imagination to make questions like, if I were this kind of shark, how would I get my food? And where would I live? And what would the environment look like to me? Right? So I like to study sharks because they capture my imagination.
Awesome. Great question. And thanks for sharing why. All right. So we're back to Outlook Elementary. Do we have another question in the classroom? I see the hands go up.
Oh, I love to see that enthusiasm. That's great.
Shark you've seen.
No, again.
What's the largest shark you've seen?
The largest shark I've ever seen was probably the whale shark, which is another shark that gets to be about the size of a school bus. So that's actually the largest fish in the ocean. Now there are some whales that get a little bigger than that, like the blue whale gets really, really big, about 100 feet long. But remember, whales are mammals, just like you and I. But the largest fish in the ocean is the whale shark, and that's about the size of a school bus. And I've seen those things. Actually, the last whale shark I saw was in an aquarium, a huge tank down in Georgia. They have a wonderful aquarium. If any of you ever get the chance to go there, I highly recommend it. It's a good place to go to see sharks.
Awesome. So how about another question from St. Mark's School?
Go ahead, Gavin. Where do I go? Gotta just sit in front of the, move over a bit. There you go.
What is your favorite shark and why?
Ooh, what is my favorite shark and why? Do I have to pick just one?
No.
Gosh, that's tough. I think my favorite shark is the smooth dogfish shark. And that's a surprising answer because it's not one that you see on Shark Week very often, because it only gets to be about the size of my arm, right? So we're not talking about a very big shark. And it has these really fine sort of, we call them pavement-like, they're flat teeth. They don't have these big toothy teeth like a white shark or a sand tiger shark. But if you ever watch them swim, they are just so graceful and so beautiful. And that was the first species of shark that I ever saw alive in the wild. Because when I was a kid, I would go to the beach. And every once in a while, there would be a fisherman that would bring in a smooth dogfish shark. And of course, they didn't want to keep the shark, and they did what a responsible fisherman would do if he or she accidentally catches a shark. They unhook it, make sure it's okay, and they put it back in the ocean. And sometimes the shark would swim around me in knee-deep water as it went back out to sea. And so that just, as a kid, that just made me go, wow, this is amazing. Look at those things go. And so that's why it's my favorite species of shark.
Awesome. Again, great questions.
Yeah.
So we'll only have time for one more rotation. So we'll start back with Rosedale. I know there's so many questions, and if you want to go ahead and send them in, if you email them from your teacher or anything, I'm sure that Josh would have no problem answering them for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, without further ado.
Okay, go ahead.
Which shark is the top of the food chain?
Which shark is the top of the food chain? That is a very good question. And I think it depends on what food chain you're talking about. I know that sounds like a weird answer, but remember, there are all different kinds of environments in the ocean. Some sharks live down thousands and thousands of feet. Other sharks live really close to the surface and swim around coral reefs, and other sharks will go into bays, and some sharks even go up rivers. The bull shark that I showed you in the video, they can swim thousands of miles up rivers like the Amazon or the Mississippi, right? So it depends on what food chain you're talking about. If you're talking about, say, the sharks close to me, because I'm in Massachusetts, you might go to Cape Cod, then it would be sharks like the great white shark. If you were in Hawaii, right, looking at sea turtles, you might find that it's the tiger shark, right? So whenever you say, oh, I'm interested in a food chain or a food web, you got to say, well, where? What kind of environment? Because there are lots of different places in the ocean. So that's a very good question. I'm very happy that you asked that.
Awesome. So how about our last question from Outlook Elementary? I love this shirt.
Oop, I can't hear you. There we go. Now I got you.
Where's your favorite place to look for sharks?
Where's my favorite place to look for sharks? Oh, I'm glad you asked that, because when I was your age, my favorite place to look for sharks was in the library. I didn't grow up on the beach, so I couldn't just go to the beach to see sharks. So I started in the library, and then once people knew I was interested in sharks, my parents would take me to aquariums. Aquariums are great places to see sharks. And now I'm lucky enough that I have friends around the world that can say, hey, come visit us. You know, we have sharks in the Bahamas, in Hawaii, in Florida. We have sharks off of Massachusetts at Cape Cod. So now my favorite place to see sharks is probably in New England. In the summer, I'll go out on a boat and I'll see mako sharks and blue sharks. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, you'll see a great white shark.
All right.
And I'll leave you. I want to give one shot here. I want to show you a video of a lemon shark taking a bite of something, which I think is just absolutely very pretty. So we can open this up. And all right, do I still have you?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to fly through here. We've seen this, we've seen this, we've seen this. Right, there's my goofy face. We talked about the fossils. Oh, here's a picture of a great white shark tooth compared to a knife, right? So you can see that there's a lot of similarity there. You can look at teeth that have that shape and say, I bet they're using it to cut through things, right? And here we go. All right. So the reason I want to show you this is because you can see that not all sharks are like the giant Shark Week great white shark that launches itself out of the water and nails things. This is a lemon shark, and watch how similar it is, like to almost like to a puppy that goes up and just smells before it eats. Ready? There it goes. What's that? What that? Oh, got it. Thank you. Thank you. And then it swims off. Right? So it's really great if you can watch an animal doing whatever it is you're interested in studying. So direct observation, going out and watching these things, is really a great way to learn.
Oh, awesome. And thank you again for showing that video.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure.
How about our last question from St. Mark's School? We can't hear you. You're on mute.
Oh, there you go.
How many species of sharks have gone extinct?
How many species of sharks have gone extinct? That is a tough question, and a very good question. And the reason it's a tough question is because people are always finding new species of sharks, right? So the number keeps changing, right? If I go out and I find a new shark tooth, a new fossilized shark tooth that I've never seen before, I would say, oh, that must be an extinct species of shark. If it's unlike any shark tooth from a living shark, I'd have to say, oh, well, that's probably an extinct species. So that number is always changing. As people find new teeth and new species, the number keeps going up, 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 up. So it's almost impossible to really give you an accurate answer because the number's always changing. So my challenge to you is, if you're interested in that, go out and find as many shark teeth as you can, and you can change the number yourself.
There you go. Awesome. Well, great questions, great videos, awesome pictures. So thank you again for everyone who viewed, everyone who's going to view in the future. Thank you so much, Josh, for talking with us. Thank you for the teachers that wound up signing up and everything. And I just want to wish everybody a happy holidays and a happy new year. And thank you for joining us. And we will see you in the new year. On behalf of Sharks for Kids, check us out on the website and have a good day.
Thanks, guys.